So Hare Krishna, welcome everyone.
Hare Krishna.
This evening, I thought that I would share with you some realizations I've had about one of the nutshell verses of Bhagavad Gita. You know, Bhagavad Gita has 4 verses which are considered to be sort of like the springboard from where all the instructions of the Gita bounce. And so we were going to look at one of those verses this evening. And I assume everyone here is interested in being Krishna conscious. It's kind of a funny thing to ask at a Hare Krishna temple, but we're going to talk about how to become Krishna conscious. And this verse that we're going to read covers that subject matter in a very interesting way. So the text is text number 9 of the 10th chapter, Opulences of the Absolute. And so we can chant it together. It's a rather famous verse. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Now again, this verse and the purport give us a very interesting key about how to become Krishna conscious. And so remember that as we read the purport here. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Pure devotees whose characteristics are mentioned here engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be deviated from the lotus feet of Krishna. Their talks are solely on the transcendental subjects. The symptoms of the pure devotees are described in this verse specifically. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees. So this first paragraph of the purport, Prabhupada is describing what is the goal, what is the result, what it means to be Krishna conscious. This is what he's describing here, by describing the characteristics and symptoms of pure devotees. Now, the rest of the purport tells us how to get there. That's where we're trying to go, so the rest of the purport tells us how to get there. Prabhupada continues. In the preliminary stage of devotional service, they relish the transcendental pleasure from the service itself. And in the mature stage, they are actually situated in love of God. So there's 2 things. There's an initial stage where service is being rendered. And then there's an ultimate stage, the mature stage, Prabhupada says here, when you're actually situated in love of God. So how do you get from that preliminary stage to the mature stage? Mature stage being described in the first paragraph. Once situated in that transcendental position, they can relish the highest perfection which is exhibited by the Lord in his abode. Lord Chaitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of the living entity. So here's where it begins. This is how you become Krishna conscious. I'll repeat that sentence. Lord Chaitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of the living entity. There are innumerable living entities traveling throughout the different planets of the universe, and out of them there are a few who are fortunate enough to meet a pure devotee and get the chance to understand devotional service. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
So we're the few. We're the few who have had the opportunity to meet Srila Prabhupada. Of course, there's more than us in this room, but we're also fortunate in that way.
Great fortune.
Great fortune, yes. This devotional service is just like a seed, and if it is sown in the heart of a living entity, and if he goes on hearing and chanting Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
That seed fructifies just as the seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plant of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into the Brahma Jyoti effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky also that plant grows more and more until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Goloka Vrindavan, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately, the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as a plant grows, fruits and flowers, the plant of devotional service also produces fruits, and the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. This plant of devotional service is fully described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19. It is explained there that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in love of God. Then he cannot live even for a moment without being in contact with the Supreme Lord, just as a fish cannot live without water. In such a stage, the devotee actually attains the transcendental qualities in contact with the Supreme Lord. So the process is compared to planting a seed and having that seed grow. And we're going to talk specifically about that. How something starts with a little seed or a little desire and grows from there to be something so great that it completely absorbed your consciousness, as we heard at the beginning of the purport. Of course, key to all this and how to do this is described in the last purport here, and it talks about the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narrations about the relations between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees, as stated in the Bhagavatam itself, 12, 13, 18, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yat Vaishnavanam Priyam. In this narration, there is nothing about material activities, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and his devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literatures, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in their association. So how to become Krishna conscious? I think that if we read the descriptions of Srimad Bhagavatam and how Krishna is interacting with his devotees, and there's such a wonderful sweetness that can be found there. Actually, one of our acharyas, he's described that there's 3 things about Krishna that make him very attractive. First is his, you can see how much I'm absorbed here, I can't even remember what they were. The first is, his sweetness, his beauty, his charm, and his sweetness. Here they are. Beauty, charm, and sweetness. Any beautiful person in this world, we want to be close to them, we want to know who they are, we want to get to know them a bit. The beauty is very attractive. But when you add to that such charming relationships, and that's what you find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially in the 10th canto. There's such charming relationships. Krishna is interacting with his devotees in such a way to completely capture their minds and hearts. And the sweetness of the activities of the Lord. These 3 things, to be absorbed in those 3 things makes one's life completely blissful and satisfying. And so to get there, it starts with a small thing that grows through a practice of hearing and chanting about Krishna, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so there are two things. One is the means for achieving this level of consciousness, and the impetus to keep going so that we can achieve the ultimate goal. Two things have to be there. And so the means is chanting Hare Krishna, performing devotional service, loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And the impetus. What is the impetus for one who's just at that bud-like stage? What's the impetus for that one? That is something that's in Sanskrit language is called rasa, or taste, or some satisfying experience. It's described by Srila Prabhupada in his preface to the Nectar of Devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And I'm going to read from you, read a little bit he says about this impetus. What's the impetus for not only devotional service, but anything? Anything, well, I'll just read Prabhupada's work, but anything, we need some kind of impetus to be able to continue towards a goal. And so Prabhupada describes that. Taste, rasa, it's the same, yes. So he says here, every one of us within this world is perpetually engaged in some sort of service, and the impetus for such service is the pleasure we derive from it. Driven by affection for his wife and children, a man works day and night. A philanthropist works in the same way for the love of the greater family, and a nationalist for the cause of his country and countrymen. That force which drives the philanthropist, the householder, and the nationalist is called rasa, a kind of mellow relationship whose taste is very sweet. Bhakti rasa is a mellow different from the ordinary rasa enjoyed by mundane workers. Mundane workers labor very hard day and night in order to relish a kind of rasa which is understood as sense gratification. The relish or taste of the mundane rasa does not long endure, and therefore mundane workers are always apt to change their position of enjoyment. So we're after a different type of taste. Everyone in this world, as Prabhupada has nicely explained, is driven by some kind of pleasure that they get from their activities, or that they will derive ultimately if they continue to struggle hard through working long hours or for years on end trying to benefit people. There's some goal that they'll get to, and the impetus is the sweetness of that, the satisfaction they get from achieving their goal. So the same is true in Krishna consciousness. To get from the beginning stages of Krishna consciousness to the ultimate stage of love of God, we need the means and we need an impetus. I think that tonight here we experience in this wonderful kirtan something of the impetus, the sweetness that can be there in together congregationally chanting Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Krishna.
Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Hare. We have to be able to taste this impetus, otherwise we won't go on. We won't go on, even no matter how great the goal is, how wonderful it sounds, the charm, the grace, the sweetness, the beauty, despite all those things. If we're not getting some taste in our activities right from the very, very beginning stage, then we won't persevere on the path. We won't persevere on the path. So if we want to do that, we have to find something, even a little thing, in devotional service that we enjoy doing for Krishna, that we find some satisfaction in. And that's going to be different for each and every one of us. Someone's going to like chanting japa. Someone's going to like sitting down in kirtan. Someone's going to like the deity worship. Someone's going to like distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. Whatever it is, there has to be some sweetness or taste there. And we all have that, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here. And so that may even be in a small form, a very undeveloped form. But what we have to do is develop that, build that, grow that, just like it's described here that the small seed is planted and it begins to grow. Little by little it sprouts up and then it grows higher and higher and higher, and then finally the fruits and the flowers come. Just like that, a gradual process that is an expansion of consciousness is what we have to be experiencing if we are advancing on the path of Krishna consciousness. So whatever we find this taste in, we have to focus on that and try to build from there. Not that we give up all other activities, of course not. We have so many activities to do in Krishna consciousness, but if there's something that we find a particular enjoyment in doing, we should fan that. We should fan that. And there are many examples of devotees, both past and present, who have taken this approach to Krishna consciousness and achieved complete success. For instance, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Now you may say, well, you're starting way up there, the 6 Goswamis. What about us? Well, we're going to get to us as well. But let's start with the example of the 6 Goswamis, because we find in their lives some examples of focusing on one type of service that they had an affinity for that resulted in a fully blossoming Krishna consciousness in their lives. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. You know, the 6 Goswamis are known for writing books. But Raghunath Bhatta, he didn't write any books. He didn't write any books. He was sort of musically inclined. And he had the ability to chant the verses of the Bhagavatam in many different tunes. Like we were chanting the Bhagavad Gita here this evening, and the last person that chanted the verse, they sang it in a different tune. I don't know who chanted the verse last, but it was a different tune. Who was it? Oh, so you chanted in a different tune. So you're following in the footsteps of Raghunath Das Goswami.
Yeah.
No, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. I want to read to you a little bit about here how he would do. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami used to sing the complicated Bhagavatam verses in 3 or 4 different melodies. At other times he recited the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He and his listeners would swoon with love of God whenever he began such recitations. It is said that sometimes his singing would abruptly stop, especially when Raghunath Bhatta was in a state of trance and started to exhibit ecstatic symptoms. Devotees would marvel at this display, tears trembling and faltering in the voice. The hair of Raghunath Bhatta's body would stand on end, and he would faint while experiencing the intensity of transcendental emotions. So he also was experiencing the highest realization of Krishna. And it came from, we can say, of course, these are eternally perfected beings, but for our understanding, it came from the seed of his desire and his finding a rasa or a taste in singing different melodies. And so he would sing different melodies of the Srimad Bhagavatam and perfect that to the point where he became completely perfected being. There's another example of Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami, he liked to do Govardhan Parikrama, walking around Govardhan Hill in Vrindavan. You can still do this today. If you go there, you can do the Parikrama. It's about 20 miles. And so every day, Sanatana Goswami would walk 20-mile Parikrama of Govardhan. So much so that he was very old. When he got very old, he still wanted to do this. And so he had trouble doing it because he was old and walking. And Krishna came to him and said, you don't have to keep doing this. You're already a perfected being. Your consciousness is fully developed. You don't have to continue walking around. But no, he was so dedicated and fixed on doing this one type of service that he didn't want to give it up. Finally, Krishna, he put his foot on one stone, and his foot made the impression in that stone. He said, if you're insistent on doing Govardhan Parikrama, you walk around this stone. That stone is still there. You can see Krishna's footprint there in Vrindavan if you go. It's at the Radha Damodar temple. So he perfected himself by this one activity of doing Govardhan Parikrama. I have a devotee friend. Every Kartik he goes to Vrindavan. And he's taken a vow that every day he'll do Govardhan Parikrama. So you see him every day. He leaves the temple in Krishna Balar Mandir just after Mangalarti, goes out to Govardhan Hill, circumambulates, and comes back. Taking this as a sadhana. Now just imagine what you have to do to accomplish that every day. My friend, his name is Bhadradas. What does he have to do if he's made a vow that I like to do this? I find some pleasure in doing this Parikrama of Govardhan.
Bhadra from Lakshma?
Yeah, Bhadra from Lakshma. I like doing this Parikrama. And I like doing it as a vow during Kartik. So, just to give you an example of how this one activity expands to cover all of our areas of our life and our full consciousness, just think what it takes Bhadradas to do for the rest of the year so that he can go during Kartik and every day do that. He has to earn enough money for his family while he's, so he can go away for a month like that. He has to make sure that his health is, steady so that he can, do the austerity of going around like that. So many activities in his life have to be arranged, focused on that one point, so that he can go around the Govardhan. And so his whole life becomes absorbed in doing that one activity. And that way he achieves perfection. All the activities of the life are dedicated to their culmination of doing Govardhan Parikrama. And there are smaller examples that we can see in all of our lives. I mean, just like here. Every time I come to Orlando, I see Jai Sheila, he's doing the arti. He does the arti here. And I imagine he does it every Sunday when I'm not here as well. Now, how does he have to arrange his life so that every Sunday he can be here to do the arti? It also involves rearranging a lot of things, making sure family necessities are taken care of here and there, so that he can be free to come and do that. So all those things that he does to be able to render that service are part of the purifying process, the part of the expansion of his consciousness, the growing of that creeper of devotion. All of it's done. And so I think all of us individually, we can also think, what do I like to do? What service can I do that will expand like this to encompass my whole life, my whole consciousness? I can tell you one thing, if it's about eating, it can easily encompass a lot of what you're doing, because eating takes so much of our time. Getting the money, purchasing the food, cooking the food, offering the food, serving. It takes so much time. If all those activities culminate in offering to the deities and taking Krishna Prasadam, then so much of our life has become purified by engaging like that. So whatever little spark of interest we may have, the point is that it's giving us some rasa, so how to expand it, how to grow it. If it's chanting, more chanting. If it's deity worship and chanting. Whatever it may be in the various types of services that are there. Does anybody have any particular type of service they like to do that they want to mention here to all the rest of us? Anybody? You should have some favorite service here.
I like to do Tulsi Aarti every day.
Oh, Tulsi Aarti every day in the morning. That's a challenge. Well, keeping Tulsi healthy in the wintertime. We have a Tulsi plant at our house also, and we have a special greenhouse for the winter, so many things. So yes, that's that absorbs us and focuses our consciousness, and from there our whole consciousness can expand. Yeah, very good. That's very worshiping. Of course, worshiping Tulsi is one of the most auspicious things you can do. Simply by touching, simply by seeing, simply by bowing down, simply by offering arti, one becomes eternally a resident of the spiritual world. So, what better thing to do with our time than
Tulsi Maharani ki.
Yeah. Anybody else have any things? Because I have some examples from Srila Prabhupada's life that I think I just heard today, which explain this principle also. Anybody else want to share anything to help? Okay, maybe a little later. Let's take Srila Prabhupada's life. Srila Prabhupada came to America by himself with no money, no support, anything. And he did one thing. He did one thing. He went out in the public and he chanted Hare Krishna in Tompkins Square Park. He went out and he did that. And just by chanting Hare Krishna, so many things came from that. The whole Krishna consciousness movement blossomed from that. The plant filled out, fruits and flowers, everything, just from that act of Srila Prabhupada. And here's a couple of amazing things that I just heard today that resulted just from Prabhupada going there and chanting. You know, he went there and chanting, and somehow or another it became a sensation because nothing like that had ever happened in America before. And so the devotees got an offer to make a record of the chanting. And so they made that record, and then they were selling that record. And they had the address on the bottom of the record. And one day, Brahmananda, who was there with Prabhupada at 26 2nd Avenue, he came into Prabhupada's room and he said, "Look, Prabhupada, we got a letter from Macmillan Company." Macmillan Company is a publisher. They published the first Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So he said, "Look, Prabhupada, we got a letter from Macmillan." And it was a request for a copy of the record. It was a request for the copy of the record. And so Prabhupada told the Brahmananda, "Tell them that we also have a Bhagavad Gita manuscript." And so Brahmananda, he thought, well, it came from New York. They were in New York. So he thought, well, I'll go and personally deliver the record. And then I'll be able to ask the person, I'll tell them that what Prabhupada said, that we have a Bhagavad Gita manuscript. And so he went there and he found out that the person that sent the letter was just like a clerk in the office and used the office letterhead or something like that. He wasn't really any person, that could do anything about publishing a book. He was just like a simple person that worked there, but he wanted a copy of the album. So anyway, Brahmananda was talking with him, and while he was talking with him, like one of the main editors from Macmillan Company happened to come into that guy's office. And so this clerk there, he introduced Brahmananda. This is Brahmananda, or whatever his name was, he was calling himself. And he introduced him to this chief editor for Macmillan Publishing Company. And Brahmananda said, well, this little clerk couldn't do anything, but Prabhupada said to tell him you have a Bhagavad Gita manuscript. So he told him, we have a Bhagavad Gita manuscript. The Swami who wrote it is here in New York right now. And the guy said, really? We need a Bhagavad Gita. We need a Bhagavad Gita. We have, Quran, we have this, that, but we don't have a Bhagavad Gita. We need another one. And so he ultimately went and they met Prabhupada, and ultimately Macmillan published Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And of course we know that Bhagavad Gita ultimately was distributed in the hundreds of millions around the world by Prabhupada's followers. But that's where it started publishing with Macmillan, who was there in the beginning. So all of that developed from Prabhupada's chanting. Just from him going and chanting, so much blossomed from that. And our Krishna consciousness can happen like that too. Small, it can be very small, but if we do it sincerely, if we have faith in our Guru and in Krishna, then wonderful things can manifest and develop in our lives. Another thing that came from that record, which came from the chanting of Hare Krishna, is that when the devotees went to London, they went there specifically looking to meet the Beatles. Now, do you know why they specifically went there looking to meet the Beatles? Because they had found out that the Beatles had also ordered some of their record. So they thought, well, they're interested already because they ordered the record, which started with Prabhupada chanting alone in Tompkins Square Park. And so therefore they thought, well, they'll be interested. So therefore they made extra endeavor to meet the Beatles. And of course they met the Beatles, and so much came from that as well. But it all started from Prabhupada going by himself with the faith in his spiritual master's words of going and chanting in Tompkins Square Park. And from that, everything blossomed and developed. So our Krishna consciousness can happen like that too. We simply have to have faith. We simply have to have faith that that taste we have can grow and grow and grow if we water it properly. And there's all kinds of examples throughout history as well. Now that the curtains are open, I can show you another one. If you look back here, you see this temple, painted, Jagannath Puri temple, painted on the wall here in the altar. There's a flag on top. Every day, they change that flag. And there's one family whose seva to Jagannath is changing that flag every day. So they climb up. It's about, that top spire is about 215 feet, I think it is, up there. And so this one family, they train their sons, and this is going on for generations. They train their sons to climb up the temple. It's of course it's dangerous. They don't use any ropes or anything. It's very dangerous.
Barefooted also.
Yeah, right. Barefoot, they're climbing up there every day to change that flag. Now, this is something their family has done for generations. And can you imagine being born in that family? How that little service, that one service, encompasses the lives of people for generations. From a small boy, you're trained how to climb up there barefoot so you don't slip and fall, and how you do this every day with dedication to Jagannath as your family service. For generations, they've been absorbed in that one service to Lord Jagannath.
The rainy season.
In the rainy season, everything, and so.
Typhoons.
Yeah, that flag. Right. So just imagine the type of dedication and the development of consciousness and all the things in your life that have to be arranged so that every day you do that. That's the wonderful benefit of Krishna consciousness. We can also take services like that, where we come and if we do an arti, say in the middle of the week, we come and we take that service. Our family's going to do this arti. Then you may have to rearrange so many things in your family to come and do that seva. But if you do that, then you're growing your Krishna consciousness, and all that you have to sacrifice to be able to do that service is counted towards propelling you forward in your Krishna consciousness. So ultimately, in the end, as we advance, the means for purification and the ends, the transcendental bliss, they become one. And so our service is our happiness. Our service is our bliss. Right now it may be a little separated. Well, I'll do this service because I know I'm going to get there. I have a little taste. But ultimately, when we reach the stage of perfection, we're experiencing so much happiness and bliss in serving Krishna that the service and the impetus, they all become one. They become one, and we relish whatever little service we do. Therefore, you find a family like that. They're completely absorbed in doing that, and that's their service to Jagannath. They find great pleasure in doing that. Or any other type of service that we take or dedicate ourselves to. So the means and the impetus, they become one in the stage of perfection. And so, as described here, great devotees, they take great satisfaction and bliss from enlightening one another and conversing about Krishna. Their study of the scriptures is not to gain knowledge or just to occupy their minds or for purification, but it's their means of enjoyment, to shanti cha ramanti cha. And it's their means of enjoying transcendental bliss is simply discussing the pastime of Krishna and enlightening other people with Krishna consciousness. So this is how to become Krishna conscious. Take a little thing where there's a little enjoyment, or maybe in the beginning it's just relief from the sufferings in this material world. Take that little thing and fan it, grow it, grow it. Maharaj introduced Naveen, it was very nice, thank you. Take that desire and grow it. It doesn't happen overnight. He knows, he's a businessman. You have to grow the business. You have to live it, you have to breathe it, you have to work it. That's when it happens. Same thing in devotional service. There's some little desire to do something. So fan it. Fan it. Take that little spark. Prabhupada was expert at this. Fanning whatever little spark we had for devotional service. And making even any ordinary activity a transcendental experience. And when I think about this, I think about Prabhupada and His Holiness Sri Vikram Swami.
Huh?
Because, yeah, I do. Because Prabhupada, he took a morning walk every day. Now, why did he take a morning walk? Anybody know why Prabhupada took a morning walk?
Doctors recommend it.
Yeah, he took it for his health. The doctors recommended he take a morning walk. But Prabhupada's morning walk was one of the most blissful experiences that we all had in association with Prabhupada. Because you get to go on Prabhupada's walk. And I remember there's pictures in Los Angeles, which Vikram Swami is there, Prabhupada's on the beach. And
Mahatma and Romesh.
yes, yes. And Maharaj is there. So Prabhupada took a seemingly ordinary thing, a mundane thing, a walk for health. But because he was so absorbed in love of Krishna, that thing became a transcendental experience for those that went with him. Like that. The means and the ends, they became the same. They became one. It was a transcendental experience where everyone was blissful. If you look at those pictures, especially I see Maharaj's face smiling.
Just a reflection of Prabhupada's.
Yeah, Prabhupada was also smiling quite broadly there. He enjoyed those things so much because it was a Krishna conscious experience for him. And so, fan it. Prabhupada would fan it, and whatever little thing there is, we can just increase it. This is some lessons that I got from reading this verse today. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes?
Well, thank you very much for such a wonderful lecture. And I have a question regarding that. You said whatever the small interest you're getting in something, you should start there and grow that.
Mm-hmm.
So can I decide that I have, for example, I feel good in kirtan. So can I decide that, or somebody is going to tell me, like Guru is going to tell me that that's a real interest? Maybe that's different. Or
We grow by
Practice.
checking with Guru and also practice. So, yeah, when you have a natural inclination for something, then you consult with the Vaishnavas. We find that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami had this thought that I should write Chaitanya Charitamrita, but I need some confirmation. So he sought confirmation from the Vaishnavas, he sought confirmation from Madan Mohanji, and he got that confirmation, and therefore he felt confident going forward. So we should always consult with the Vaishnavas, And
But there are many Vaishnavas here, so we'll all give you a blessing. You please take your time.
Yes, take your time. It's very good. You got your answer. Anyone else have anything? Yes, please.
So, Guruji, my question is, so does the sadhaka actually desire to get the taste? Because it seems a little selfish to actually desire to get a taste.
Well, ultimately, the most perfected devotees of Krishna they don't have any selfish interest. But when we look at their behavior, it seems like it's selfish interest. The gopis want to do this, and it seems like they want to do it for themselves. They're getting some pleasure out of it. But they're only interested in Krishna being pleased by seeing them pleased. So that's the ultimate stage. In our beginning stages of devotional service, we can't help but act in our conditioned state. And so we're not completely purified. It means we have some self-interest. But if we take whatever abilities we have or natural inclinations we have and offer that to Krishna, then it becomes purified. So naturally we're going to find that our inclination, or that place where we find a little rasa, is something that's, like I'm a good singer, therefore I like to sing, and it's going to be a little selfish initially, but by becoming purified, ultimately, we'll be purified of that selfish desire. So, in the beginning stages, don't be afraid to become interested in something and try to grow something because it appears selfish.
Even making money, Prabhu said, you like to make money? Very good. Make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Use it in Krishna service. And
Right.
Ambarish Maharaj was the king, but he was doing everything.
Yeah.
All 9 processes.
Very good. Shankar, wonderful.
Even if we analyze the Shishastakam prayers by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in one of the prayers he directly says, Nayanam Galat Ashru Dharaya, Vadanam Gad Gad Hrudayagila, Purakai Nichitam Bhukada, Shabanama Grahane Bhavishyati. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his prayers, he says, my dear Lord, when do my eyes fill up with tears when I chant your holy names? When the hairs of my body stand on end at the mere recitation of your name. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually taught us how to pray. So in one sense, it is completely appropriate to long for that. Just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says, Kabi Habi Balo Se Dinamar, Aparada Guche Shudanam Ruche. My dear Lord, when will my offenses cease? Will my taste for the holy name increase? So even though we're at a young, immature stage in our Krishna conscious development, it is appropriate to pray, my dear Lord, when will I reach these higher stages of devotion? Will my material desires become reduced? Will my spiritual desires to serve you become maximized? So it is okay to pray like that.
Very good example. Thank you.
Kabhi Habe Bolo Se.
Jai Maharaj.
I think Maharaj's interest is kirtan, because he's always so absorbed in kirtan. I see, even after everyone goes out and takes prashadam, he's in here by himself and he's like leading the kirtan. Very absorbed in kirtan, very exemplary in that way.
Yes.
Prabhu's mercy. He told us once in Vrindavan, chant more and talk less. Sure.
Well, that's the key then. We'll finish there on Prabhupada's instruction and we stop talking so much. Take prashadam and chant some more Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. His grace, Prabhu ki.